Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back.
Give it to me like I want it.
Hope you guys are looking forward to a great discussion today. We're going to be starting shortly. Let me know where if you're watching me team live. If you're watching me team live, let me know. If you're watching me replay, let me know. Hashtag team live, team replay. Let me know. And also let me know what part of the world you're watching me from. Hey, what's going on, family? Hope you guys doing well. Welcome to Cocktails with Chello, episode 41. Can you believe that we are already on 41 episodes? I'm actually pretty surprised, and I'm glad that I've made it this far. So I appreciate everyone's support watching me today. So thank you very much for that. Before we get started, you guys know I gotta get all the stuff out of the way. So all opinions are solely my own and do not reflect the opinions of my employer. The reason why I bring that up is I work for the second largest recycling and waste company right here in Metro Atlanta. So guess what? If we haven't met already, why not? But hey, my name is Marcello Arcele. Nice to meet you. I hope you're doing well. I provide recycling and waste services. Yeah, let me get that right. For companies right here in Metro Atlanta. I specialize in working with manufacturing, industrial, and logistical companies, just to name a few. So if that's you or you know someone that needs help in that industry, let me know. Reach out to me directly. My number is 678-683-9136. So I appreciate that. Now, next thing we want to talk about is be sure to join us in the comments. Don't be shy. Share your comments in there. We're going to have a great, insightful conversation. So I definitely want to make sure that we get your opinions and your questions known there. We're going to be answering some of your questions, because this is going to be a heated conversation. I'm expecting a nice, insightful conversation. So we're definitely going to have a chat there. Share the stream with other folks. I'm going to be logging into the Clubhouse room shortly, so we're going to be joining with the folks there. And show me some love in LinkedIn, Facebook, and also on YouTube. So be sure you hit the indication there, and be sure also to follow Cocktails with Chello. You know, that's a lot of fun doing that always. So let me log into the room, and then I'm going to check out to the comments right now. So give me 1 second. Let me do that. Let me bring up, log this guy up here. Yes, my face. Bingo. Okay. All right. So I start the room over there. Let me bring up, share the screen so you guys can see it on your end. All right. I see Liz is in the house. What's going on, Liz? Give me 1 second. Let me actually bring up that screen. Here we go. Go. Here we go. All right, there you go. We got Enrique's coming through right now in the house. And let me go into the room right now so I can actually get the audio so folks could actually chime in. And don't be shy, computer. There we go. Oh, I forgot I gotta ping myself. There we go. Hey, there we go. And now I'm in the room.
I'm in the room. What do you know?
Hey, what's going on,
Sabra?
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing
very good.
Thank you very much
for joining us.
Let
me actually get
pause
this guy here.
There you go. Okay. Let me actually get this guy here. Okay, and now we get to go. Let me lower this guy. Okay. All right. So you guys can hear me just fine. Is that correct on your end? Okay. Let me see here. All right. Let me know if you guys can hear me okay in the room there.
It sounds good in Clubhouse.
Okay. Good. Perfect. I appreciate that. And let me bring this guy up here for a moment. And get this room here going. And you guys are more than welcome to come to the stage or raise your hand if you want to come up. But in the meantime, I'm gonna be bringing up what's this guy called here? The the screen that I'm gonna be sharing on LinkedIn. So here we go. Bring that guy up here. Bingo. Not now. Share. Here we go. Okay, here we go. I'll bring that up there. All right, guys. So thank you very much for your patience. I apologize for that. Let me bring up a couple of folks here to the stage. I'll invite Enrique if you guys want to come up and also see Sheila. Thank you very much for coming through. Now, in the meantime, I'm actually gonna reach out to the couple of folks that we have here on LinkedIn. So I'm gonna give some love. I see I got my dude Carolyn in the house. Thank you very much for coming through. Bernard, thank you very much, man. I see also my lady Miss Myers is in the house as well. Thank you very much for letting me know I'm sounding good. I got Gary. Hey, what's going on, dude? Martin Pratt is in the house. Thank you, Sue. Thank you very much for that. Robert Murray, man, thank you very much for the love as well. And also bearing with all the craziness just now. Robert as well. What's going on? Thanks for the love. And I got my lady over here, Amanda, giving me the shout outs with the mic. And you can never go wrong with Mr. Jarvis Tarker. He's in the house as well. Rob, man, you guys have shown me so much love. And Rob House is also in the house as well. So thank you very much for all that. Now, the topic, let me get started here. The topic that I wanted to talk about today was imposter syndrome, or essentially, self-doubt, that kind of feeling that you always get. But unfortunately, it appeared that it's been like I feel like it's an epidemic. Like I see it everywhere. I mean, I sometimes I start thinking, come on, man. Really? I mean, is it really that serious? I'm trying to figure this out. I mean, I know that sometimes people are challenged with getting things done. I guess that sense, and people start saying, well, you could just fake it until you make it. Sometimes you could do that, but before I get the dialogue from the podcast that we're going to be listening to, I'm curious to know what the folks on the panel have to say. In the meantime, mind you, this is being recorded, so also folks on LinkedIn could hear about you. So please take this moment to let folks know what you do, what you're interested in, and why should folks connect with you on LinkedIn. So I'll start with Sabra. Go right ahead, Miss Sabra.
Well, hello, everybody, LinkedIn family, and everybody that's in the clubhouse. So I'm Sabra Taylor, and I'm in Denver, Colorado. And Thursdays, I am with Marcello and the lovely Elia Francis in Canada, and we talk about sustainability. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn, and then you can also read my bio in Clubhouse and connect with me there. The one thing that I have heard a lot about imposter syndrome, and I've been kind of curious about because everybody has a different meaning. I mean, you can read the definition or what clinical definition is, and it's kind of interesting because I always thought that it was lack of self-esteem, right? So with me on this, I have been in several different relationships that, people put me down, been around some corporate bullies, if you would like to use that word. So for me with this, I know my strengths and I know my weaknesses. So I kind of feel that we do get in our own heads and try to be a certain way, or we strive to be a certain way. So then that's when I could get confused and go, well, I'm just trying to be better. Is it really imposter syndrome? So I'm curious about how this goes. And I did listen to the podcast, and there are some key things that I really want to focus on and see if I actually change for myself. So I'm Sabre Taylor, and I'm done speaking.
Great. Thank you. Go right ahead, Mr. Enrique.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. Thank you, Chello, for inviting me. I'm Enrique Acosta Gonzalez, leadership development coach. And this is a great topic to discuss. And I'll tell you personally, right, because I've had some thoughts about these last couple of weeks. And I'm, you know me, Chello, I don't mind telling. I don't mind talking my business just because I know it helps somebody else out there. So hopefully through the discussion, we'll be able to unravel this a little. But just like Sabre was saying, there are so many different definitions for what, self-doubt, negative self-talk, and imposter syndrome is. But what it really is an attack on our persona, right? It's an attack, whether it's a self-attack or whether an external attack. It's an attack. And so how we build resiliency and how we build walls to deter those attacks is really where we need to focus on. But great discussion tonight.
Yeah, and I before I'd be remiss, you brought up some good, interesting topic, attacks. Can you unpack that a little bit? You know, I mean, without I want to get Liz an opportunity to share, but I wanted to touch on that because that's interesting. I've never heard about it in that direction. Can you share some insight on that?
Yeah, when I say attacks, I mean these instances in life where either by what we think or we have accepted from others and how they think, we start to catalog or categorize our self-worth and our abilities based on those attacks. And I call them attacks because they don't help us. Anything that doesn't help you is there to destroy you. And so that's kind of like a form of attack. But anything in those realms that will try to break us down in our thinking of who we are and what we're worth are attacks.
Okay, thank you. All right, I appreciate that. I can see your point of view. Liz, sorry I have to have you follow that, but but by all means, please share let folks know a little bit about yourself, what you're interested in, and quite frankly, why should folks connect with you on LinkedIn and also on Clubhouse?
Thanks, Marcello. Nice to be here. I oversee content and marketing for Waste 360, and that is a news site and newsletters, and I have a podcast called Nothing Wasted. So it's a lot about waste recycling and sustainability. So if anyone wants to connect with me on LinkedIn about those topics, I would love to connect with you. I'm always looking for information and stories on innovators in various areas of sustainability and recycling. Imposter syndrome. I loved seeing this topic, Marcello, because like you said, it's almost like an epidemic now. And what's interesting is my sister and I were talking about this recently, and it just seems like the world in general is just more anxious now. And I'm talking even pre-pandemic. And it's, I just hope for everyone because I think everyone suffers with this a little bit. But if we could just all embrace that feeling in our stomach, when you get nervous or you have butterflies, embrace it because it means you're about to grow. So I think that's part of imposter syndrome. I think if we can embrace it and view it as an opportunity to grow, then really, it can take us far. But if you let it paralyze you, then, obviously it's going to be a much harder journey for you. But I think if we view it that way, then it's a real opportunity. So I don't want to sound like a Pollyanna, but I really think we all need to embrace it in some way, because we're all meant for growth, and we all need to jump in and not fake it till you make it. I'm not saying that. I just mean that there's a reason that you have that feeling, and it usually turns into growth for yourself. So that's it. Thanks for listening.
No, I love that. That's a great insight, a great point of view. I really, I appreciate that. I wanted to go back to my dude here, Enrique. Enrique, they got a follow-up question for you. Fanny on LinkedIn said, "Attack." That's a strong word. Sometimes people don't agree, but not necessarily attack. What do you think about that? What's your take?
Yeah, well, I mean, like I said, and we mentioned earlier, Saber said perfectly. Right? There's so many different actions. There's so many different things. I specifically categorize it as an attack because it creates a battle that was not there before the thought came. So when you start doubting yourself and your abilities and whether you belong in a position that you're in, you were just fine until this thought came and started. And that's why I refer to it as attack. It may be strong, but it truly is what it is. When it starts to battle your good thoughts about yourself versus trying to convince you now that either you don't belong there, or you're not good enough, or you don't have the capabilities.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. I definitely want to give a shout out to, and this dude. If you're not connected to him, you must be underneath a boulder, not even a rock. Rick, Rich, thank you very much. I appreciate letting me know. Say, hey, let's go, baby. Let's make it happen. And thank you very much for the words of wisdom that you've been putting out week after week, day after day. So connect with this dude here. And Rich, if you want to join the conversation, please feel free to, I'm going to put the link in LinkedIn. So if you guys want to join us in the conversation right here on Clubhouse. So I'm going to do that. But yeah, Fanny has a follow-up, and then we'll address a couple other comments, and then we'll get started. So this is what Fanny said in the meantime. Battle? Why? I'm sorry. We need to be able to exchange ideas. Okay, now, ding, ding, ding. Now in this corner, Fanny with an uppercut. What's going on? What are you going to do, Mr. Enrique?
Well, no, and the exchange of ideas is great. Now, I'm not following whether she means just accepting everything and saying okay, or the actual definition I was putting out, because you have to make everything work for you, right? So your definition of what a battle or or attack may be. I said that's how I see it, because when these thoughts come to me, I immediately go on the offensive.
I can see that.
I mean, I immediately say, hold up now. I know who I am. I know what I'm made of. I know what I have in my toolbox. I know what I'm capable of. Now, there are some times, and obviously I'm not going to go try to create a skyscraper. I don't know anything about that. So obviously I'll be like, yeah, I can't do that.
Yeah.
But when there's areas that I know I can do and I know I'm capable of, then those thoughts come to me. I immediately attack it. Now, if it's an attack on me, and I treat it as an attack on it, right? So, and the whole premise is somebody is gonna be the victor after that conversation is had, and so it's either gonna win over me or I'm gonna win over it. And my whole thought is, or train of thought is, if it's to my demise, or we're gonna have a fight.
Yeah, I mean, I see that sometimes. I guess when it comes down to certain scenarios, you just cannot agree to disagree. Sometimes you just have to stand your ground if you have strong opinions on the topic, and that's how I feel. And thank you very much, Enrique, for sharing your insight on that. That's how I feel about imposter syndrome. And reason why I bring that up is I had a conversation with Cher Jones. I also had a conversation with Bobby Umar about this. and they shared their opinions on it, and I respected them. I do really respect their insight in the industry. I do respect them as content creator. But I just don't understand how someone could say that this is something that is a re- um, a clinical condition. Let's say that much. And I'm being sarcastic at this point because it really is. It seems like to the point that people just feel like take two of these and call me in the morning. I think that it's sometimes it's a little bit deeper than this. I mean, you might have to get counseling. You might need support from your family. At the end of the day, my opinion when it pertains to that, I feel that sometimes individuals like to measure themselves up to someone that either is successful or put in the work, whatever that might be, So you can't measure yourself. You can't measure your 5 to someone's 10. It's going to take a while to get to that point. Mind you, focus on what you're good at. And if you want to be at that 10 that you're inspiring to be, at that person that you admire, reach out to them. Ask for mentoring. They may not be available, but then, try to find a way to find advice from other folks and work your way up there. I mean, think about this. I'm in my 40s, and the stuff that I know now, if I knew that when I was 20, 18, then when I was 18 and 20, I had imposter syndrome because I wanted to know what I know now, but I couldn't. I had to live this journey. And now I know what I know. And then when I walk around and I interact with customers or even some of my colleagues, they look at me like, man, you got this. You know exactly how it is. Nah, I'm still learning. And that's the key thing, is that sometimes I feel that this imposter syndrome, the people that I spoke to in the past, they feel like once they get to that point, they reached it. They reached that pinnacle and they're done. I think that, when it pertains to life, it's a journey and it never ends. It really never does. So I'm just curious now, before I bring on the podcast, I want to give an opportunity to folks on a panel to share some other insights before we start listening. And then I will be pausing the podcast throughout our discussion or our event. And then I'll be getting folks' insights. So I'm curious. So Saber, did you have something to add?
So I really like the topic and, how you go back with the battle, because I'm a perfect example because I do have brain damage and I battle with my thoughts daily. And so I have taught myself that I only battle with myself and with my own thoughts versus outside factors, because the old saying is someone's opinion of you is none of your business, and you can look at that. And so when Enrique was saying, the battle, I looked at it as a battle with myself of, okay, I know what I'm good at. I know what I'm bad at. Or when those come across, I don't actually compare myself, because there are some people in the clubhouse rooms that I've been in, and I get in my own way going, oh my gosh, they're very well educated. I didn't go to Cambridge. I didn't go to Harvard. So does that mean that I'm less than? And so then that's kind of where you kind of have to turn things around to go, I know what I'm good at. I know what I'm struggle with. And I really focus on just growing. I mean, you only know as much as you know. Right. Mm-hmm. So those are my little thoughts. And I'm really excited to dig into this.
Did you because, really say that?
We are our self-talk, and we are, do we believe what other people think of us? Because again, I can't complete some sentences and I'm all around in circles. You and I've had multiple conversations. I'm like the big blow up guy from the car dealership, right? With the blowing in the wind. And it's funny because nobody can see me, except I'm looking at LinkedIn and I'm watching you. So I think you can actually see me. Yeah. And I'm putting my hands in the air, like the big balloon.
I see you. I can see you all the way from, I'm in Atlanta, Georgia. I have long distance vision. I can see you all the way in Colorado, so you're fine.
So see, you do have one of these, what is it called? It's called the superhero, and we'll get into that after the podcast. So let's get to it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Enrique, did you have a follow-up?
No, other than, there are some differences in personnel, right? People have different things that they have to engaging daily, right? Some of the mind, some of the physical constraints of their body, some of emotional, traumas, and all of these kind of get together almost like in a group at times and try to convince us that we're not who we say we are. And when specifically about imposter syndrome, it's for me, it's a feeling of that where I am, I don't belong, or in the group that I am in, I don't belong, or I should not be speaking about this topic because, kind of like Saber said, not Harvard matriculated, right? And I was laughing when she said that because I was like, man, I could just take a course right now and be a Harvard alumni online. And so sometimes those things don't really mean a hill of beans, right? But in terms of imposter syndrome, this is a great topic to address because in many different areas in our lives, we're challenged with this.
Yeah, I agree, and that's the key. Thank you very much, Enrique. Let me get Liz's follow up, and then I'll have two other folks that has joined us on the stage. So, Liz, go right ahead if you on the follow up.
Thanks. I like what Saber said about her having the battle with herself, because I think that's what a lot of this is. I think it really affects high achieving people and type A people and people who really want to be successful. So I think if even just being aware of it is helpful for yourself. And the fact that Saber acknowledged that and how she handles that, I think that is great. And I think it really starts there. So I'd love to hear from everyone else.
Sure.
Thanks.
Okay. Thank you very much. So now I have Mr. Martin Pratt. Him and I got history mainly with this Rode Podcaster Pro device that I'm using, that I'm actually putting the audio on the screen or on the stream and all this kind of thing. So him and I, we got some background. So I wanted to bring him on the stage. And in the meantime, please, Martin, introduce yourself. Let folks know what you're doing, especially here on Clubhouse. And also watch your folks connect with you on LinkedIn as well. Go right ahead, sir.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know that folks should connect to me on LinkedIn. I use LinkedIn as a landing page and verification for sometimes I get referred to startups that need advisory help and just want to get some feedback. And so I'm open for that in the startup world. But I'm not on LinkedIn pretty much to like sell or to buy. So I pretty much use LinkedIn as just like information. And then people like you and people like Liz Leiba and John Graham and Quentin, I follow you guys and amplify what you guys talk about because I think you're talking about some really cool stuff. But yeah, so on Clubhouse though, I do have two clubs that I'm really proud of. One is called Write a Legacy Club. And there we help authors get their books started and give them feedback. And we're part of a strong, almost 9,000 member strong community that we built over the last 20 some weeks here on Clubhouse. And because of that, part of the kind of the writers community on Clubhouse, the authors, not necessarily the writers, because writers is a wide term. But the second group that I'm really proud of is something called Black LinkedIn. On Sundays, we do a room where I call it therapy for Black professionals who are trying to navigate the corporate space. And it's a place where we unpack what I call false terms, like microaggressions. It's not micro, it's just aggressions. Imposter syndrome. There is no such thing as imposters. We all are authentically who we are, when we are, where we are supposed to be at. And really, imposter syndrome was created by psychologists to define women's entry into the workforce. When you look up how that came about, there's a great documentary on YouTube everyone should watch. It's called Century of Self, and it talks about the psychology cabal in the United States. It was started really by Bernays, and then in the 60s / 70s, there was a self-driven cabal that kind of took over. But either way, I think the term and being defined by these terms like self-help or self-critical or versus I go back to old school stuff and just nature and just like, you know what, I'm scared. Or you know what, I have insecurities. That to me is a definition that we can work with and we can help each other out with. But these false terms that kind of, language is a very interesting thing. We had a room here in Clubhouse last night called Plantation Theory, and we had a psychologist and a social linguistic talk about pragmatic language and how pragmatic language is ingrained in certain classes of the U.S. So if someone says, did you take all the cookies? And you say, no, I had some cookies. And if you're defined, then you have to make a decision. Is that person a liar? Are they a thief? Or, what's going on? And so I think a lot of times the language of words that we use is very, very important. And when you look at corporate America and the top CEOs, we only had about 15 black top CEOs in America of the top 100 companies in the last 100 years. And most of the CEOs, like Ken Chenault, trying to think of the other brother, and a sister, they all have a legal background. Most of them graduated from Harvard or Yale, and they were lawyers. Because to get to that level in corporate America, you have to be very pragmatic with your language. And you can't react to someone being dismissive or aggressive or in their language. And that's not something we're naturally taught in our communities or different classes. So I'm on Clubhouse to really help people solve that and to be authentically here for writers. My family owns one of the oldest black bookstores in America. It's called Sisters Uptown. 23 years in business in Harlem, 156th Street in Amsterdam, my aunt and my cousin. So I've been loving books and loving writing since I was 4 years old, and it's in my blood and DNA. I'm Martin, I'm done speaking.
Martin, thank you. You definitely was able to share quite a bit, and thank you very much for providing that insight on that topic. Just be able to give some context on what how you feel about the topic. So I'm definitely looking forward for you to share some insight. So I want to reset the room before I bring Rob on to share his info. So what we're doing today is that the topic that we're going to be covering today is how to stop negative self-thinking, right? Or self-talk for that matter, whichever you want to call it, AKA imposter syndrome. Is this real? Is it? I don't know. You decide. But we're going to have a discussion on this. We're going to be listening to an expert that wrote a book about that. And we're going to have a discussion on that, the people on the panel here on Clubhouse, and also folks that are watching this on YouTube, Facebook, and also on LinkedIn. We're going to be engaging back and forth. So I'm going to go into the comments. So in the meantime, please, if you're in Clubhouse, pull the refresh, ping folks to join in the conversation. This is not going to be a basic conversation. We're not professionals here. We're individuals having a discussion. We are professional individuals having a discussion on a topic that is quite common in our space, and people have very strong opinions on it. So I definitely want to get you guys insight on that. So I want to welcome, I see Ann is in the house. I see also Christy. Thank you very much for joining us. Sienna, thank you very much for joining us. If you guys want to join on the stage, just, you know how it is. Just raise your hand and you come on board. So Rob, please, Mr. Rob House, if you're not connected with this dude, I don't know what you're talking about. You have to connect with him today, because if you're not, then you'll miss out on his Friday videos, which is this guy. I'm surprised you don't got a record deal by now. So Rob, please let folks know about yourself, what you do on LinkedIn, what's your passion, and, give us a little bit about, what's your thought on imposter syndrome.
Man, thank you, brother. Marcello, what's up, man?
Hey, man.
We got to catch up. I'm glad you do what you do, man. You work hard all day long, and then you come home and you set this up, this great conversation.
Thank you,
great
sir.
dialogue. And I love the fact that you're the one who was challenged by this imposter syndrome thing here. You were feeling that. And so to get it off your chest, you open up the discussion. I think that's brilliant. I think if we take that methodology more often, we solve problems a lot faster. That's kind of what my life is about, solving problems. First, I learned how to solve my own mentally, physically, spiritually, and I trained myself in those certain areas over the last 20 years, personal training, psychology, neuroscience. I was a health coach, studied Christianity and theology. I was a pastor for 10 years.
Wow.
I did that because I really wanted to get connected and understand, spirituality. I studied multiple religions, but the deepest depth in theology, Christianity. But I did that because I really wanted to understand how this thing is working. I want to know how it works. I want to know how the mind, body, and soul work and how they work together. And so I studied these things, and I had started businesses in multiple areas. But now on LinkedIn, you come here, it's like, oh, you get to share. And so it's all about really just empowering people. We're meeting them wherever they are. I'm not going to go into my business because I want to talk about this subject line, but that's what I do. Empower people. I'm an empowerment artist. And I use my attributes to do so. And this imposter syndrome, everyone, the greatest amongst us, feel it constantly, even. Oprah Winfrey's mentor, Maya Angelou, said it. And Google it. Said, I wrote 11 books and I these great things. I'm paraphrasing now, but she said I did all these things, and every time I'm done writing the book, I feel as if I'm an imposter. Like it's like she knows she's not, but it's like, man, could I have done this? Is it possible? Do I have what it takes? Was it really? And the answer is yes. So the one thing to realize is that having imposter syndrome, this feeling is okay. It's a feeling. It's a thought. It's energy. It comes. The important thing is to recognize it. Like that will be the most important thing, recognizing it. And then what happens is if you have confidence, like if you practice a certain thing, whatever that is, then you build this confidence. So when you have confidence, it's because you have history and you have practice and you have the ability. So that means when that imposter syndrome feeling comes, it won't be as long because guess what? You know that you do this. The other thing to help somebody, because it's helped me. I'm telling you what worked for me too. I work with kids and families. That's my favorite thing to do, work with kids and build children programs to help build this holistic mindset we're talking about. That was really fantastic. I did that for 7 years. But one of the greatest things, 10 years, one of the greatest things you can do though is reward yourself. Like celebrate your freaking victories. That will help you not, because you can only think of one thing at a time. So if you're constantly celebrating your victories, it's hard to feel like you're not the one that's doing it, right? So just kind of trade it. Be mindful how you're feeling, what you're thinking, right? Be mindful, because sometimes if you feel something, it may be an indicator that maybe you do need to make some adjustments. But most of the time, it's just our inner enemy, which is the biggest enemy. Come on, somebody, that's what it is, really.
Yeah, that's true.
See, the pastor comes out sometimes, It's the biggest enemy is your enemy, the inner critic, man. Mm-hmm. And so reward yourself, love yourself, and know that you do have what it takes. Just like Maya Angelou and just like everyone else who believes in himself. My name is Rob, and I'm done speaking.
Thank you, Rob. I appreciate that. Thank you very much for that. Before we start going into the podcast, I'm going to post again the link if you guys want to join the discussion in the Clubhouse room. And in the meantime, I'm going to be addressing some of the comments, and then we'll get right into it. So I want to address, I got Naranjan. She has her insight is, she says, interesting topic. Thanks, Marcello, for bringing some light to the subject. Isn't it all about looking into it deeper, at a deeper level? Why is showing up in the first place? Who and what do you fear? Really? Perhaps meeting the fear emotion with compassion. There is a reason for every single feeling and emotion that reveals itself in your life as an experience. Wow. Wow, that was pretty deep. Thank you, Naranjan. I appreciate that. And if you want to join us on Clubhouse, thank you. Please feel free to join us in the discussion. Now, what else we have? My dude, Ken Patel, is in the house. Thank you very much, Ken Patel. I'm glad you was able to come through. This guy is a mover and a shaker. I think that like he he thinks in a hotel pops up. I mean, this guy is like a hospitality genius. So if you're not connected with him, please, I strongly recommend you to do that. I see Miss Clark is in the house here in Clubhouse. Miss Smith, she says, it seems to me that being vulnerable in the professional field can be costly to one's success. Wow. And I can see that. And that's why sometimes people put up a front or what do you call it? Code switching. So some of you guys know what that means. So it is the same thing. I see Kimberly's in the house right now. Thank you very much for coming through. There you go, Sabra. Thank you very much for the cookies. More cookies. I see Robert is giving some love. Thank you very much for the audio compliment. Carmen, thank you very much. Thank you very much for the love as well. And let me see who else we have came through that want to show me some love here. We got, gosh, you guys have shown me a lot of support. So thank you very much. Ms. Myers, she gives co-sign that what we're talking about is right on time. So thank you. Now, okay, let me see here. I'm going to bring on the podcast. So let's get started. Kirsten, if anybody want to get on stage, let me know. Here we go, guys.
Show where brilliant professionals share how to sharpen the universal skills required to flourish at work. Enjoy more career fun, wins, meaning, and money with your host, Pete Makaitis.
Hello, and thanks for joining us here for episode 663 with Melody Wilding. If you've got a smidge of negative self-talk, imposter syndrome, or lack of confidence going on, Melody brings the goods. So you'll learn one, the two behaviors that greatly hinder sensitive professionals. Two,
you guys hear the audio in Clubhouse and also in LinkedIn? Let me know.
Negative thinking. So if you want to check out the show notes or the transcript or the links to items we've referenced, please drop on by awesomeatyourjob.com/ep663. And while you're chilling over at awesomeatyourjob.com.
Yeah, Clubhouse is good.
You hear it fine? Okay, good. Thank you.
Summaries, which summarize the wisdom that Melody shared in an email you can read in just about 3 minutes, as well as providing access to the vault of all of these summaries. That's called the Gold Nuggets at awesomeatyourjob.com. Now, here's Melody's story. Melody Wilding, LMSW, is an executive coach, human behavior expert, and author of Trust Yourself, Stop Overthinking, and Channel Your Emotions for Success at Work. She's coached hundreds of private clients from CEOs and Fortune 500 executives to leaders from the U.S. Department of Education, the Federal Reserve, and the United Nations. She teaches graduate-level human behavior and psychology at the Silberman School of Social Work at Hunter College in New York. Her writing is regularly featured on Medium and in the Harvard Business Review, Fast Company, Forbes, Business Insider, Quartz, the New York Times, The Cut, Oprah Magazine, NBC, etc. Huge thanks to Melody for sharing her wisdom with us, and huge thanks to our sponsor, Storyworth. If there's ever been a...
All right. In the meantime, I want to let the couple of folks, thank you very much, Floyd. And I see Richard, thank you very much. I want to give the two folks that just joined us before we get started, I want to give them an opportunity to share their story, let folks know about yourself, what you do, what you're passionate about, and also why should folks connect with you on LinkedIn and also in Clubhouse. So, Anne, what you do us a favor, let folks know about yourself, please.
Hi, I'm Anne. I work in HR for government contracting. I'm actually director of HR. And you can connect with me. I hold rooms on a daily basis pretty much on the LinkedIn Club, as well as Mentoring Mondays. So I think imposter syndrome especially kind of raised its hand for me when I was job searching. And one of the ways I was able to overcome that was just making sure that I documented all of my wins and looked back to see, you know what, I might have a setback here or there, but I've done all of these amazing things, so I have the capacity to do it.
I like that. Well said. Thank you very much for that. And now I already mentioned it, and I can see here, I'm going to put it on the screen. I see Amanda knows my duty here, Ken Patel. So Ken Patel, Mr. Patel, let folks know about yourself. Tell them why you're a mover and shaker here in the United States, and also why should folks connect with you on LinkedIn and also here in Clubhouse.
Thank you for having me. I actually stock shelves at Walmart at night and work at Target in the daytime.
This is a hustler. I love it. See, this is what I'm talking about.
No. But I appreciate you. I've been for a while. I know we've tried to connect and you wanted me to come on. So I had a little bit of time today. So I'm actually CEO of EV Hotel Group, EV Human, and Hospitality 360. And we're actually completing the EV Human project. That's the world's first all-in-one software for hospitality. And then Hospitality 360 is my talk show host. That's all about hospitality news. It's on every Thursday, 10 a.m. on LinkedIn Live. And I've been in the industry for, this is going to be my 25th year. I was CEO in New York City for about 7 years, and then I reside here in Georgia, Alpharetta, since about 2018. So I look forward to hearing from everybody.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. So let me thank you very much, Kent and Maureen. Welcome back. Thank you very much. Rob, Liz, Enrique, and Saber. Thank you very much for hanging in. Tough. Let's get the discussion going. But before I do, I did already see we got somebody already giving a thumbs up for our speaker, Dr. Brown. You're gonna be listening to. Fanny said that she has listened to Dr. Brown and her vulnerability research is actually eye-opening. So, and I concur. You guys you're gonna love the discussion, and mind you, I'll be pausing in between, and then I want to get you guys insight on what we're listening to, and get your responses.
Make the moms in your life feel extra loved and appreciated on Mother's Day. The family feel close, even WORTH.
I think the concept that really underbeds the entire
is fun and the most surprising and fascinating discovery you made as you were putting this together.
I think the concept that really underbeds the entire book of being a sensitive striver was the biggest light bulb moment for me. Personally, I am this personality type, and it was a huge discovery for me to put together and put words to something that I had struggled with for most of my life up until that point. But also after coaching people for 10 years, I had just seen this really repetitive and consistent constellation of challenges that I couldn't put words to. And so when I was writing the book and I was really struggling with the proposal, trying to figure out what I was writing about, I just took a whiteboard and wrote down on it all the different challenges my clients had, grouped it into 2 different categories, and kind of stepped back and had that lightning bulb moment of, oh, sensitive and striver, those 2 sides together. So that was the biggest aha for me.
Well, that's a great turn of a phrase, a sensitive striver. I think I am one, and I think that's a resonant term for many of our listeners. But can you unpack it for us? What exactly does that mean to be a sensitive striver?
Of course. So being a sensitive striver means that you are highly sensitive and high achieving. So you are someone who thinks and feels everything more deeply. You process the world around you more intricately, but you're also very driven. You want to succeed and you want to advance in your career. So it's that combination of sensitivity and striving. Biologically speaking, this is about 15 to 20% of the population that has a genetic trait difference. So we are actually wired differently to pick up on more of the environment. So we have a more highly attuned central nervous system, which means that we're more perceptive, observant, we're more attuned to our own emotions as well as those of the people around us. We're deeply caring. We give our 100% to our work, but we tend to have an inner world that's on overdrive. And that's because we process more deeply than other people. That leaves us more susceptible to some of the downsides of stress, emotional overwhelm, overthinking.
Well, so, and I'm intrigued, and I think that we've got
that's an interesting point of view, and I've been subjected to that overthinking, and my people in my immediate circle know that. Sometimes I have fallen victim to overthinking things, mainly because I don't know what it is. I guess either I could be somewhat of a perfectionist, but I know that I can't get things always perfect. But I'm trying to see, I try to think things through, potentially to see how things can end up, and in doing so, I overthink it. So I'm curious to know, folks on the panel, if you guys are, have challenges with overthinking, and if so, how do you manage it? So, Sabra, curious to know what's your take on that, if you have an opinion.
Well, every day for me is a struggle. So, whatever I can do better, that makes me, it's hard to put words into, and I like this because it's, when she was talking about being sensitive, I never thought that I was a sensitive person. In fact, some people think I have no emotions, and I do. I have a lot of them. I just don't express them to most people. They're all internal. So with one of the things that, I overthink is I agonize of, am I doing the right thing? Am I doing this? And I stopped doing that a couple of years ago just because I was really digging down and it was holding me back from what I could achieve, because I would look at something and go, well, I should have been doing this, or I should have said that, or, oh, wait, I should have done this differently. And so I think we do agonize over it. I think that we try to overanalyze a lot of things when we should just go with the flow and just be better the next time, right? So those are my thoughts.
No, good point. I like that. Enrique, what do you think?
Yeah, overthinking. I think we heard it best from my friend there. That inner, that inner thing. We have so many different possibilities after the thing is done, and it's always like that.
It's that hindsight that you gotta love.
Yeah, and at that point, some people have the opportunity to gain some ground on something they may have lost, but most people, they don't get second chances at these things. So, what overthinking does is that it causes an opportunity for you to even feel worse at times, because you could see clearly now the good possibilities that could have come from a different decision. But inner thinking is one of those things that you have to be ready for, because it will happen. But who is truly ever ready for those battles? I keep going back to battles. I keep going back to challenges, and because it truly requires you
Come on, man.
some type of structured stamina and a position of authority to fight some of those things that we think of internally.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And mind you, it's that when you say the battle, that's something that's a comfort area for you to express how you feel when you're going through these emotions. So, Liz, curious what do you think about that overthinking, thought or procedure? Go ahead.
I think that's a big part of it, Marcello. I really do, and I think that for people who tend to overthink and be, suffer from imposter syndrome, I just think you have to start to trust yourself and trust that the work that you're doing and the promotions you receive or the clients that you garner are for you. And I think it's hard to do because I think a lot of people with imposter syndrome kind of credit their all of their success to luck, right? That's what I've read. And I follow this woman on LinkedIn, and she is a very well-written marketer. And she said, what's funny is what you find is the people who don't suffer from imposter syndrome are actually the imposters themselves. So I think if you suffer from it, it just proves that you're in a growth mindset, you're willing to learn, and you're pushing yourself to do more. So I think that has a lot to do with it.
Good point. Good point. I see that Author is joining us. Thank you very much, Author. We're talking about imposter syndrome and how to stop that negative self-talk. So if you have opinions or you like to share your insight, you're more than welcome to. What we're doing tonight is that we're listening to an acclaimed author that she wrote a book on the topic, and she's going to be sharing her insight, and we're going to be debating what we're listening to. So thank you very much for joining us, Author. Mr. Patel, what are your thoughts about overthinking? I would think it's someone in your role, critical thinking is key. So, I'm just curious to know what are your thoughts on that, or your insights on that?
I would think, being in hospitality, you're dealing with a lot of personalities, and you're exposed to a lot of different levels when you're dealing with all these different sorts of personalities. So you have to almost adjust, right? Like your personality has to adjust in a level that how can you accommodate these different sorts of personalities? And I always feel every day is an adjustment. And we're going to overthink, right? I'll overthink, but I think the issue that I see, even when I'm on all these shows and across these media channels and everything, is I tell everybody it's right now we have to think about others more than ourselves. You know, there's just no time for us to kind of just think about ourselves because more people need help. So that's kind of my thought on it.
No, I like that. I like that. I think that what I like about what you just said is that I think about what you said as the resources that we have. And what I mean by resources, I'm thinking about time. We all have 24 hours in a day. And how you use that time determines, how successful you could be. And success is relative. Everyone has certain different goals that they need to meet and accomplish every single day. So it's all relative. But the fact is how you use your resources is the key thing. So do you want to sit back and whine, complain, or not get things done because you're emotionally drained? That's fine. I mean, you're entitled to that. But the fact is, how can you utilize that resource? So in this case, like what Mr. Patel, I feel that he's saying, like, you know what? He's not in that imposter syndrome area. So he knows what he needs to do. He has certain things in place, and he's executing a plan. So rather than actually not addressing it when he sees it, actually he's going to reach out the proverbial helping hand. Am I hearing that correctly?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, we live in a world of change, right? We have to change how we actually proceed every day. And what we do is we are going to have negative self-talk. There's going to be negative talk all around you, but I always teach everyone to be positive. Every negative equals 2 positives, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. I get it. That's pretty cool. And now, Mr. Martin, what do you think? I'm not sure if you had a chance to listen to, but what we listened to a moment ago was about overthinking. Just the process of overthinking. Like just thinking, okay, well, I need to get this done. However, if I did it this way, this was going to happen. So I'm curious to know, what are your thoughts on, or your insight of overthinking? You know what I mean? So, let us know what do you think? We'll come back to you, Martin. Okay. So thank you very much. Let's continue on with the podcast.
Plenty of applicability, whether you happen to have that genetic switch going for you or not. So, well, first of all, tell us, can we get a genetic test? How do we confirm this quickly and easily?
Yeah, so I actually have in my book, there is a quick quiz, and I can run through some of the items in the quiz if that would be helpful. But this quiz is drawn from the research, from what we know about high sensitivity as a trait, and from what we know about high performance in the science. So some of the signs: you are someone who experiences emotion to unusual level of depth and complexity. You have that desire to exceed expectations in everything that you do. You need time to think through decisions before you act, since a hallmark of sensitivity is pausing before acting. Mm-hmm. Tend to have an inner critic that never takes a day off. You're kind, compassionate, empathetic to others. You find it difficult to set boundaries and say yes too much. You struggle to turn your mind off because it's constantly filled with thoughts. You hold yourself to very high standards, and you judge yourself harshly if you make mistakes. So those are just a few of the signs, but we can also dive into, I actually have a framework that explains the 6 key qualities that all sensitive strivers have. So we can dive into that if you like.
What I like about what I found interesting in what she shared, what stood out to me amongst everything that she said, was having so many thoughts in your mind. So many thoughts in your mind. I know folks in my family that they sometimes find it difficult to go to sleep because they have so many thoughts in their mind, and they'll be up hours. And when I hear about this, it baffles me mainly because for me, this is maybe some people that have difficulty sleeping. I might be doing a little bit of bragging, but usually when I lay my head down on a pillow, lights out, Jigga. You know what I mean? That's a wrap. I don't take long for me to go to sleep, and typically I'll listen to some podcasts. So, Charlene, thank you very much for joining us today. The topic of the discussion today is how to address negative self-talk, aka imposter syndrome. So we listened to a podcast, and the person is on this podcast is a renowned author. She's sharing her tips, her advice, and also, quite frankly, the information that she was able to gather from some research. So if you have some insight, you'd like to join the conversation, please raise your hand and we'll bring you up to the stage. So I'm curious to know, folks on the stage, what do you think about that? If anything stood out, let me know. Or the topic that the one that stood out to my mind about so many thoughts in your mind. So I'll start from the bottom up. So Martin, what are your thoughts on what we just heard? Go right ahead, Liz.
Okay, great, Marcello. And God bless you, Marcello, for being able to go to sleep like that.
Yeah, I mind you, trust me, people don't like that about me. I do work hard, so and then this is the worst part. I work hard, so I go to sleep quick, but then I snore pretty bad. So and then I wake up the next day. So obviously. That's a whole different topic, but yeah, go right ahead, Liz.
Okay, but it is a gift to be able to do that. Well, I think what resonated with me too was just so many thoughts going through your head, and I think if you need to tame those, and if we could all have strategies to do that, we could sleep well. And I honestly, Marcello, it's huge that you do, because you must have some sort of good routine or work hard and play hard and know that tomorrow's another day, and that you're not beating yourself up for being unable to tackle all that you wanted to today.
Yep. Yeah. And that's a good point. The thing is that at times I do work a little bit more harder than either than others. And harder is a relative term. I guess you notice I like to use the word relative because it really depends on how you see it. I don't really work hard. I strive to work smart. So I do a lot of smart working. And then sometimes when I do a lot of smart working, then I'm like, gosh, let me do a little bit more. And, it shows in my results. But nevertheless, I digress. The fact is, at the end of the day, I know I need to get some rest. And many people in my family have said, well, it just shows that he doesn't have any worries. People say that often. Well, he mustn't have any worries. That's the reason why he could just fall asleep, because, people that have worries or are doing things or whatever, they have challenges. Now, Richard, the name of the author and the book is in the description. So if you can find it, feel free to send me a DM and I'll send it to you. Go right ahead, Saber. Let me know what you think. If you have some insight on overthinking or something else that you might have heard.
So, when you tell me that you can fall asleep, jealousy comes to play. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Thank God for Ambien. That's all I have to say. Thank God for Ambien. No, so back in the day, I was an insomniac because I had so much going on. I would take on more. And that's kind of why I like this too, is I would always say yes. I was a yes person. Always taking any projects because I know that I can finish it, and I would stay up all night long trying to get them done and literally draining myself. And so I did have to navigate and focus. And that's a big thing with me, is focus on what I'm actually capable of doing and what I should take on. So, it says overachieving. I have been told all my life from a little girl that I was an overachiever. And to me, I'm not an overachiever. I like to give people different experiences. So I do a lot of networking. I do a lot of giving back to the community, doing baskets. And
one of my things is I love to give gifts to people because there's so many people that don't have somebody in their life that can give them something, or they just don't have the means. I want to give everybody a wow factor when they come to one of my parties, whether they come to, so, you know, I overthink a lot of that. Is I'm always trying to look out for someone else and what would they want. I just did a basket for a real estate agent, and the guy was just overwhelmed that I took the time to overdo his basket. It wasn't just one or two items. It was a plethora of different things that was really meaningful for him. And so when I take a lot of thought and do that, and I actually can now sleep because I write everything down. So I had to take some steps.
No, I like that. I like that. It makes a lot. It makes perfect sense. And I think that the overthinking, I can relate to that because what happens is that I take pride. Oh, a lot of people take pride, but I feel like that I when it pertains to, let's say, customer service and my clients, I their success, I take it personal. So I might spend a little bit more time than the average person. Mind you, I know when to step away. Let's give an example. Let's say if a customer says, "Hey, I got missed today." And what I mean by that is I'm in the trash and recycling business, and I may get a call, say, "Hey, they didn't pick up my trash today." And there's a lot of factors that play into that. It could be weather, it could be traffic, it could be a lot of stuff. Trust me, it has nothing to do with bad service. And what I could do initially is reach out to operations and wait for the response. Outside of that, my day has to move on. But, you know, obviously, you know, there's other things I could do. But however, that's when I'll disconnect and not overthink it. So that's the key thing. But yeah, let me continue on the podcast. Give me 1 second to get that going.
Yes, I'd love to hit the quick version of, you know, check each of those 6. But first, I'm thinking, let's distinguish a bit. Everything you've said resonates with me a bundle. I suppose it's hard to say if we use words like unusually high or more than others. Is like, well, I don't know what others are experiencing in their interior life.
Yes.
But I suppose, what would be the insensitive striver, for example? So I guess there are people who are ambitious but don't have that going on. What is it? Just like you can't make an omelet without cracking a few eggs. I don't care who I have to dominate to win. Is that what the insensitive striver sounds like?
The insensitive driver. I love that. No one has said that to me before. So I love that. The sensitivity is a spectrum. So as you were saying, you know, people, you fall on that just like you would any personality trait. So people who are highly sensitive are much more affected by the world and the environment that they're in. Mm-hmm. So for example, if you're someone who is utterly drained at the end of a long day with meetings where your partner is not. So for example, you know, my partner, the things that drain me and are very taxing to me, my partner, it doesn't faze him at all. Mm-hmm. Or things that I pick up on in a situation where I notice certain subtleties or nuances goes right over his head. And I love him with all my heart. So that is said with kindness.
And could this also be true about just actual physical stimuli like sand?
It's funny. That's an interesting point. And the reason why I paused that there because I could relate. You know, I work hard, but by the time I get home, this is the craziest thing. I have a grandson, and at times my wife would babysit him. So, you know, she works from home at times. So, you know, if anyone been around a 1/ going on, which is now he's 2, you guys know how much energy and effort it takes. So, you know, you can be pretty exhausted. So me, after being out there all, you know, day walking around and literally knocking on doors and walking the pavement, I come home and I'm picking them up, bouncing around, walking around. Yeah, I didn't take care of them all day, but I could do that for hours. So in the same thing, sometimes I could be not really clued into some of the nuances because I don't know, I don't overthink it. So I'm just curious if anyone had any insight. Otherwise, I'll continue playing the podcast on that.
Feels rougher. A loud noise is more jarring and painful.
Mm-hmm. 100%. Right. And that's actually the first of the Strive qualities is actually sensitivity, which sounds obvious, but it refers to exactly what you're saying, which is sensory sensitivity. So we startle more easily. Yes, we're more sensitive to smells and fabrics and bright lights, for example. So that's why zoomed.
Well, hey, folks, and folks on the panel can let me know, and also on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook, let me know what are the things that you're sensitive to, and that stands out to me. For me, I could be driving in a car, and I could have styrofoam containers in the back rubbing against each other. It doesn't bother me a bit. However, if my wife is in a car, woo, it drives her crazy, and I know that's common as well. So in the comments, let me know what drives you crazy. Is it, nails across a chalkboard, someone swinging back and forth on a rickety chair making that sound? Let me know in the comments. Curious to know, Saber, what are the things that when you hear it, you're like, stop it? What is it?
Well, so absolutely nothing really bothers me as far as noises or anything like that. And I think I have learned to tune out a lot of things. Because again, I try to focus on other things. So even, you know what, I do remember something, because it's rare that it happens, but when my significant other, he does not put on his, because I have been in company vehicles that you have to put on your seatbelt before you drive. He does not put his seatbelt on before he drives. And so the beeper is going on for, 10 minutes before he'll put his seatbelt on. And as he's running into the neighbor's house. So that's what bothers me the most, is people that, don't put their seatbelt on before they start the car.
Liz, what's your pet peeve?
That's a good one. Turn signals tend to do that to me in a car too. If someone forgets to turn it off, or it doesn't automatically turn off. But I guess I've just practiced patience over the years with having two boys, that things like soup slurping and things I think that would have bugged me years ago just don't as much anymore. Mm-hmm. And I don't know about you guys, but since I work from home so often, I've had to really uber focus. So what I've been through, yesterday I was on a live video and I had my one son working out outside with his team, and my dog barking at another dog, but I had to pretend like nothing was happening. So I'm running through my house acting like all is well. So I think over the years I've just become more patient and have been able to overcome some of those annoying pet peeves.
I can relate to that. Hey, Barn, before I bring you on, I want to ask, but Fanny shared two things that is her pet peeve. So one of them, she doesn't like to be yelled at, which I can relate to that. I get that, it doesn't even matter, even if it doesn't matter, even if it's her boss. And I believe that's even more reason why you don't want to get yelled at, even if it's your boss. And then the other thing she doesn't care for is when people chew out loud. In my case, and I can understand that, I don't chew out loud, like a horse. But however, sometimes when something is really savory, I might smack. And certain people in my family don't really care for that. Martin, what's your pet peeve, if any? See, what I love about Martin is that this guy is cool on the pressure. Let's continue on with the podcast.
Really fatiguing because it's just visual stimulation and you're self-monitoring all the time.
Oh, yeah.
And so sensitive strivers can become really highly overstimulated and operate at that level for a long time, kind of just pushing themselves through it. That's the striver side.
Yeah.
And be in burnout. So yes, you're exactly right on.
And so that's helpful there in terms of, okay, there is a spectrum. Mm-hmm. And so it's not necessarily binary on off. You got the gene, you're in the 15% versus you don't, you're not.
Correct.
And one thing I have to think about sensitivity in terms of when I'm dealing with people, mm-hmm. I get the impression that some people I know seem to really feel, I don't know, I get sensitivity. I mean, they feel the pull of guilt and or reciprocity. Mm-hmm. Significantly, and others seem completely immune to it. Like there's just no sense of they owe you.
Yes.
And in a way, I envy that. It's just like, man, you were such a killer negotiator. Like, you don't care at all about all the things I've done for you. Wow. I just can't be that heartless, although I'd probably be more lucrative if I could be. So does that fit in the mix, or is that a totally different construct?
No.
Yeah, that's one thing that I don't know. Is it because I'm a guy? I don't know, but I've been known to be, let's say I'm in tune with my sensitivity. Okay, let's leave it at that. Okay, so but the fact is, even though I'm sensitive, I could disconnect. I could put things in their boxes, and this is emotional, this is personal. I can leave it there and then move on, and not really let that hold me up. That's just me. I'm just curious if you guys are the same way. Like, when it comes down to having something, dealing with something that I know typically other people in your family and friends will like come to you and say, bro, I have no idea how you still deal with that person, or why you even, are friends with them, or whatever it might be, or even, why you still work with them, because, you can manage to separate things. So have you ever been told, or even, congratulated, or even said, like, even asked why you even still deal with that person? Because, so I wasn't sure if you've been in that scenario.
All the time. And so I do get called out a lot of times, thinking, because people think that I'm not emotional or I have no connection, because I am who I am. I've accepted that. I know my weaknesses, I know my strengths, and I don't judge others because they may be going through something that I have no idea what they're like. And so gossipy, or they're doing something different, that's just who they are. I don't get involved. I do me, and that's all I can control. I don't let others. And it took me a while to get here, let me tell you, because I have been in some different type of scenarios, and everybody leads differently, everybody achieves differently, everybody has their own goals. And so I try to be just very supportive on any level. Whether I agree with it or not, they have to do what's best for them and their family. And I think they're the ones that know what that is.
Yeah, well said. Liz, what do you think about that? About, are you able to put things in their box and move on and still continue be amicable, either work or personally?
Yes, I think if you can do that, that's another gift, like your sleep, Marcello, because I think that is one thing I'm able to do, compartmentalize. So if I've had a loss in my family or something like that, obviously it's devastating, but I can still function. And same goes on the work front. If something happens on the work front that is difficult or challenging, I'm able to put it in a box and keep moving forward. So I definitely think that could come off as insensitive sometimes, but it definitely helps for you to be able to function in this crazy world of being on all the time, for sure.
Yeah, I could definitely relate. Because we're humans, and at the same time, given that we're human, we're emotional beings. And I think about the people that I interact with, internal customers of mine. When you interact with them, you could tell that they still harbor something that they felt or believe, or their perception. And they still can't get past that, and it just makes it for a combative relationship. And it is what it is. And sadly, those are the ones that, if you want to be a pain in the butt, you'd be like, you know you actually become more those are then you are reaching out to those individuals more often, just because what are they gonna say? Huh? You're here, you're my internal customer, we need to work together. So in the meantime, before we go back to the podcast, I wanted to reset the room and let folks know that what we're talking about today is how to stop negative self-taught, aka imposter syndrome. We're listening to a discussion where an acclaimed author is sharing her research and her data, and also what she managed to conclude from that information and why she wrote the book that she did. Now, this information is this conversation is being broadcast on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. So if you are connected with me on those channels, you're more than welcome to see the conversation and engage in the comments there as well. So I highly recommend you to do that. Or also be sure to connect with me there on LinkedIn. So I see we have Cassie and also David. So thank you very much for joining me. So if you want to join in the conversation or you have insight, either you personally feel that you have been subjected or you have issues or concerns with that topic, imposter syndrome, I encourage you guys to come to the stage and share. Or if you know people and you have some insight on that, please be sure to share that. So before we go back to the podcast, I want to highlight a couple of points here. I have Carolyn Smith on LinkedIn said, when others tell me I should stop being so sensitive. See, mind you, I think that when it pertains to that, you just have to know how to manage it. As long as you can manage it and still being productive, is perfectly okay. I think that's when you stop being sensitive is when you stop being human. So I think that's the key thing, and that's my perception. And then Carolyn says, again, her second comment says, Sabre, you should make a T-shirt and put your comments, I know who I am, and now what my weaknesses are, I am who I am. That sounds like something like from Dr. Seuss there. That's pretty funny. I appreciate that. And Davis, thank you very much for coming to the stage. In the meantime, before we get back to the podcast, I'd like to give you this opportunity to share with the folks here on the panel a little bit about yourself, why they should connect with you on LinkedIn, and if you do anything that people might be interested in partaking. So go right ahead, Davis.
Hello.
Hello. Go right ahead.
By the way, my name is Davis Boat and I'm from Ghana as well. And I do manage someone who do music, but I just want to have more idea about management as well.
I'm sorry, repeat that again, please.
I said my name is Davis Boat and I'm from Ghana as well. And at the same time, I do manage someone who do music.
Oh, okay. Okay, I understand. So I appreciate that. Yeah. So thank you very much for letting us know that that you manage someone that does music. Today we're talking about something that's more of like a like mindset and psychology. That's the topic of today. So if you have some insight on that, you're more than welcome to share that. So let us know that. Okay. So thank you very much for that. I'm going to continue with the podcast.
Okay, I really do appreciate
100% right. So
yeah.
Actually, you're kind of leading down this framework. So the way to identify your qualities as a sensitive striver, or conceptualize them, it's conveniently spells out the acronym STRIVE. Mm-hmm. So we first had sensory sensitivity, that the heightened nervous system response that we talked about. Then we have the T, which is thoughtfulness. So you're contemplative, you're reflective, you're intuitive, but you can overthink situations, worry more, get into indecision and doubt. Next would be responsibility, which is part of what you were talking about, being dependable, always being counted on to follow through for other people. But we also can't bear to let people down. So we will take on extra responsibility, even when it means sacrificing our own well-being. Mm-hmm. Then we have inner drive, which is that desire to exceed expectations, set a lot of goals. Sometimes we can set our goals so sky high that it's unrealistic and we fall into perfectionism. Fifth, we have vigilance, which is also being attentive to other people's needs, having a keen awareness for those subtleties, a change in your boss's body language, the general mood of a meeting. So you're constantly on high alert, taking on what's going on around you. But you may sometimes read danger where there is none. And then last is emotionality. So that's our E in our STRIVE. And that is having complex, more intense emotional responses. So more emotionally reactive, so to speak, both positive and negative. So we get the joy of experiencing life in full color, of the full emotional spectrum of gratitude, excitement. But we can also get stuck in negative emotions like anger, fear, anxiety, and stay stuck there longer than most people.
Well, it's funny. I am not a hoarder. Like, where's this going, Pete?
I like that whenever a sentence starts that way.
But sometimes I do have a lot of complex emotional relationships associated with objects in terms of, are we just going to let that go? And what does that mean? Does that mean that I've failed? I've made a poor decision, that we're no longer committed to this thing I thought we were committed to, that when we embarked upon this path and acquired this. And so it's like, I really do have a lot of complicated emotions associated with simple things like, hey, are you going to use it? Well, then get rid of it. Like, yeah. It's like, well, there's a little more to it than that. Mm-hmm. Not about every item in my home, but there's like a sliver of things that fall into a weird category. So it sounds like, okay, there's a spectrum. Sounds like I'm on it. And I think a lot of our listeners are. And, yes, you know, for the insensitive strivers, well, maybe you'll learn what the rest of us are dealing with and interact with us.
That's right. Because this is 20% of people. So this is 1 in 5 people. So if you are not one, you definitely work with one, love one, are friends with one. So it's good to know about this personality and in terms of how to get the best out of them, how to communicate with them. So definitely something here for everyone. Okay. Well, so then could you maybe share with us an inspiring story of a sensitive striver who, I'm going to really put you on the spot here, who was having some stresses, some difficulties, but then gaining some awareness and some tools about the sensitive striving, was able to open things up and make a positive impact? I do. And this one is timely because this actually happened last year when the pandemic really hit. So I have one client who is in a senior leadership position at his organization. It was a nonprofit, and he characterized himself as a reluctant leader. He actually consulted with the organization before, and the organization was in a transitional period. Let's put it that way. It was really, the leadership was in disarray. They had really been managed by, an old school model, kind of managed by fear and dictating what people should do, and just kind of your old school management style. And so people had left. There was a lot of turnover. There was a lot of upset on the board about the organization not hitting their targets. And so my client was thrust into a full-time senior leadership role when someone very suddenly exited. And so all of a sudden, he sort of found himself as this reluctant leader of this broken organization. And then the pandemic hit shortly after that. And there was all of a sudden a lot of pressure from the board. This was really a catalyzing moment. But for him, it was also an opening to say, we can't do things the way we've always done. If we don't change something, we're not going to survive. Because actually, his organization, what they did was in-person teaching. They would bring people to teach in-person classes, which, as you can guess, during the pandemic was not possible. So overnight, pretty much their entire revenue stream evaporated. Now, what my client was able to do and what we worked on together during this time was first his confidence of shifting from, in his mind, keeping himself in that identity of the reluctant leader. This is only temporary and part-time, and they didn't really want me, and I got here by luck. A lot of getting past a lot of his hangups around the imposter syndrome and fully stepping into, I'm the leader of this organization. And
yeah, I'm curious now, Sabra or Liz, have you guys ever been in a scenario similar to what you're listening to now that, they say, hey, you're up. and there was some doubt, mainly because it was a role that you never done before or a task. So I'm curious to know if you ever had a scenario like that, and if you have the story that you could share with us.
Marcello, who were you asking?
Oh, no, either one, whichever would like to go. Go. If you have, do you have a story, Liz?
Yes, actually, my role right now, Marcello. I've been with Waste 360 for 9 years, and I started in a marketing role. And over the years, I took on more. I launched a podcast. I started writing more for the website, and it just, the lines of content and marketing really started to blur. And the goal was for me to eventually oversee content, but it got accelerated a lot faster due to COVID, and we lost a couple of people, and I was moved swiftly into the position. And I had never done it before. I had never worked in the newsletter system. I managed a team, but I had never managed a group of freelance writers. And I think Steph, my editorial director, might be on the LinkedIn with you right now. And she's awesome. So she was one of my hires, and she's been fantastic. But again, with all that being said, this was a completely new role that I just had to jump into. So it was scary, but it was also one of those things that I just knew I had to do and figure out. So I did a lot of my own reading and learning and watching classes and everything like that. So it's been great, and I'm so glad I did it. And I just want to say to everybody, sometimes the timing will not be right, but just do it and see how you feel, and just do what you can, get the support you need, and you might surprise yourself.
Good point. Good point. I guess if anything, sometimes I guess, you know what you said is, and I feel that there's some confidence in that statement, meaning that you knew that even if you might have fallen flat on your face, there's a good chance that you still could recover. Like, okay, you were prepared to fail, and that's fine. And that's how you were going to learn. Meaning that it's almost like thinking about jumping into the middle of the pool, but knowing that you could swim, but you never jumped in the middle of the pool. So worst case scenario, you just have to swing. You need to swim a little bit longer. So that's how that sounds to me. So that's a great point of view. Liz, Saber, have you been in a scenario that you had to jump into the middle of the pool?
Well, of course. But, one thing that Liz says, just knowing those and not fighting the feelings that you were having and learning from that. And I think sometimes that holds people back, is not accepting those feelings and owning them or acknowledging them, and then what to do to move forward. I think sometimes we do second guess, am I qualified? You can ask those questions. Am I qualified? Am I, it goes back to your self-talk or your self-worth, or where you see others. And I like that, where, you accepted your feelings, you kind of knew, and you knew where to grow. I'm always, the one thing that I've always told myself, and I agree with Carolyn, that I should all make a bunch of t-shirts, because here's another one of my favorites, is the one consistency is change.
I like that. It's almost like, just, it's going to happen. Just be ready. It's almost like when people say, when you exit a valley, there's going to be another one around the corner. So yeah, that's right on target. So yeah, I appreciate that. Let me continue on with here.
That identity. Second was really starting to leverage how his qualities as a sensitive striver could really uniquely be huge strengths in this situation. And a big one is that sensitive strivers, because we're processing, we're taking in a lot of information, we tend to anticipate eventualities. We tend to be able to spot opportunities that others.
Sounds familiar there? Eventualities, huh? It's going to happen? Does that sound familiar, Sabra?
Absolutely.
Miss or anticipate roadblocks that may come up. So my client, even before the pandemic hit, he had been very vocal about the fact that we need to get our online learning up and running. We need to really be going deep on that as a different revenue stream. And so when the pandemic hit, he was very well poised to push that through, and very quickly was able to help the organization pivot their entire business model to an online revenue stream, because he had seen that opportunity coming.
Mm-hmm.
And then last was using his sensitivity, his empathy, his emotional intelligence, his high value for integrity and diversity. He completely rebuilt the team from the inside out. As I had mentioned before, the culture of the company was very much by fear, by criticism, and he completely changed that to be a very psychologically safe place, to be a place that, people were going from a 50% turnover to people saying, I never want to leave this job. I love working here so much. And people referring their friends to the organization. So really, he completely turned around the inside of the organization. And that's primarily through his skills as a sensitive striver, his problem solving, complex thinking, his empathy, emotional intelligence, all of those things combined together was the perfect combination needed to help the organization get through the pandemic.
And that's lovely in terms of the reluctance from which we started there. I guess imposter syndrome is huge there with regard to, I don't know enough. I'm not worthy of this opportunity. I'm a fraud. And yet it seems like those same kinds of instincts that lead to you thinking you're a fraud are actually the sorts of instincts that are assets in terms of helping out, in terms of like the sensitivity and the empathy and whatnot there. So that's cool right there in terms of just having that awareness. Okay, this is good.
Yeah, those strive qualities I mentioned before they can all be strengths. You want to think of them almost like dials on a stereo. You can dial them up and you can dial them down. And when your qualities are well balanced, for example, when your thoughtfulness is well balanced, you're able to be reflective and problem solve and bring creative, original ideas to the table. But when your thoughtfulness is not balanced for whatever reason, you're stressed, you lack the right tools, you lack the awareness, well, then it can turn into imposter syndrome, overthinking. And so they're two sides of the same coin.
Well, I think I got a good picture for how the strive qualities can be assets. Mm-hmm. And I've got a little bit of a picture for how that could be unpleasant as you're inside the head of a sensitive striver. Could you paint perhaps a detailed picture in terms of the 6 strive qualities and how they can be working against you or feeling not so great?
Yeah. And I think many people will be familiar with this part. So let's take some of the most common examples. We talked about imposter syndrome. So that is that feeling of being a fake, a fraud, despite your accomplishments. So it's really just being really hindered by your insecurities. So a lot of the clients I work with come to me because they say they are playing it safe in their career. They're running away from more responsibility because of their lack of confidence. They don't want to put themselves out there or take higher leadership positions, or they do take higher leadership positions and they self-sabotage or flare out early on. So that is one common thing we see. Also, something I call the honor roll hangover. And that is a combination of people-pleasing, perfectionism, and overfunctioning. So it's called the honor roll hangover because many of our habits that, many sensitive strivers are grown-up A+ gold star students who bring that same sort of mentality, be the best, do everything right. They bring that mentality with them into their careers. And while that helps them be successful then, that it's not necessarily the same skill set it needs to be successful, particularly as you advance in your career.
And when you say overfunctioning,
yes,
that sounds like a good thing, but over maybe not so much. What do we mean by that?
That's right. So perfectionism, most of us know, perfectionism is not really the desire to be perfect, but it's more the self-recrimination. It's being highly self-critical. Nothing you ever do is good enough, beating yourself up relentlessly for everything that you do, all or nothing thinking. That's perfectionism. People pleasing can also look good, right? I want to be helpful to people. I always want to be of value. We hear that constantly from people in the workplace. But people pleasing can look like agreeing to someone's not so great idea when you don't actually agree with it, morphing your opinion so someone likes you. Or a lot of folks I work with who are managers and leaders will sort of downplay their opinions because they want their team to like them or not give feedback. So that's people pleasing. And then over functioning can look like a few things. It can look like swooping in to fix situations. You always have to be the one putting out fires. If others around you are very dependent on you, so if everybody comes to you for answers, to the point where people don't know how to do the work themselves. So you are basically an enabler. So when you're over functioning, you tend to overwork as well. You tend to take on more than your share of responsibility. So if you take on emotional and mental responsibility for situations when it's really not yours, an outcome of a meeting or a project, and you are just beating yourself up and feeling horrible because it went sideways when really there was so much out of your control, then you're overfunctioning, right? And the problem with overfunctioning is that it causes other people to underfunction. So you can actually create this cycle where other people don't take responsibility. They don't step up. They're not empowered, which only reinforces it because you feel more resentful. You feel like the kid in the group project who does everything by yourself and nobody else steps up. And it might be because you're not giving them a chance.
Okay, thank you. Well, let's.
All right, so guys, we have about 16 minutes left on that podcast. What I will do is that you guys, there's a link to the podcast in the description of the event. I encourage you guys to continue listen to the rest of that. I want to be respectful of people's times. Now, I'm curious to know, folks, in the conversation, either on LinkedIn, YouTube, or for that matter, even on Facebook, if you have any opinions, please share that in the comments so we can address it while we're here live. I see Sultan is in the house. Thank you very much for coming through, my dude. This guy is an outstanding content creator, so thank you very much for stopping in. I appreciate the support. Yeah, he says that other people not taking more responsibility. I hear that. Yeah, and that's the key thing, is that sometimes people just decide to just step back and, let someone else to deal with that. But no, unfortunately, sometimes people that fall into the imposter syndrome, they take on too much, and then they blame themselves why they weren't successful. That's typically the stereotype, but it's not always the case. You might be a hybrid of different personalities that create you as a personality or of a person. Saber, thank you very much for putting a link to the podcast as well. And Fanny, she says that she definitely wants to read that book. I definitely encourage that. The link is when you go into the description or the comment section, Fanny, I did put a link to the lady's book into the comment section, which her name is Mandy. So you'll see that there as well. And then the link to the podcast is in the comments as well. So I highly encourage you to continue to listen to that. We're 16 minutes left in that, so you'll be able to get that information there. Curious now. Oh, thank you very much, Saber, for putting the link to her book. So thank you very much for that. Now, Saber, I know that you said there was something that you listened to when you listened to the podcast that you were going to bring up because you wanted to cover that. Was it something? Did we get a chance to cover that yet? And if not, let me know.
So it's where we just left off because I try to take on too much. I do a lot, but the one thing that I've learned over the years as a leader is I an enabler, or do I empower people? So enable them. I take everything on. Don't let them touch anything. And instead, I've actually been more empowering and let them make the mistakes, let them actually take the lead and really empower them, not just be part of the group, actually let them take that leadership and those roles. And it has been so inspiring to watch others grow over the years versus just what I've accomplished. So I really thrive on watching others grow and take on more responsibility and empower others. I mean, that's what life is all about for me, is to see where people can go with their journeys.
Yeah, I like that. And mind you, when I hear that, I think about at times knowing someone's potential, or you feel that that individual could do better and they fall short. I've been in scenarios currently with colleagues of mine that I see the potential and they just don't apply themselves, and then when they don't they don't receive either the accolades, or better yet, they're not going to get the accolades because they have not applied themselves. They're not successful, and then they want the proverbial handout. So if they haven't applied themselves, it's hard for me to give them the handout. At times I'll give them the handout, but then when you see that they haven't actually did anything with it, you're like, well, gosh, next time I'll just keep it to myself. So, that's my thought. What are your thoughts on what you heard thus far? That's the last part there, Liz. And if anything, if you have something to wrap up what we listened to thus far, or even, if you want to tell me what you can cook for dinner, I guess, whichever one is top on your list.
I love it. Well, what you just said really resonated too, because hard conversations, they're tough to have, right? They're difficult, but I was listening to a podcast because I've had to have them lately with a bigger team, and it's just feedback is a gift. So if you hold it back, this is what I learned from this leader on the podcast and in books. It's like, if you hold that back, you're actually limiting this person's growth. So as a manager, you owe it to them to share that feedback and help them grow. So don't look at these difficult conversations as, a fight, you versus him or her. It's really you bringing out the best in that person.
Did you really say that?
I think that's where it helps to really separate the personal and the business. So that really resonated with me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's the thing is that the way that we're things that we're exchanging, what we're talking about, it takes a special kind of person for it to connect or connect the dots for that matter. Because sometimes you put it in front of someone and they look at it like it's hieroglyphics. I'm like, really? You don't understand? You don't know where I'm coming from? And in like we said about providing criticism, I'm a big proponent of receiving it and giving it. Unfortunately, sometimes I may not be able to give it as tactful as I like to. That's where I'm challenged. At least I identify it, but unfortunately, given that's the case, I do fall into that that section or that criteria that I may not give the criticism because I'm afraid of hurting the person's feelings. So I might go into like what Miss Yolanda is talking about, that you have to, giving out handouts doesn't really work, that you have to teach someone to fish, but you got to think about sometimes you teach them how to fish, you show them how to set up the rod, even how to throw the rod to catch the fish, and even the technique and the time it takes, and they still don't fish, or better yet, they don't actually go to the lake to fish. That's the worst part. And then they come to you and say, hey, can you show me how to fish again? So, that's the worst part. Hey, Jarvis, thank you very much for coming through. We're talking about the topic is how to stop negative self-talk, aka imposter syndrome. So we've been listening to our podcast. We're down to 16 minutes left. I know that I just want to be conscious of people's times because I know it seemed like it was dwindling. So I want to give people an opportunity to listen to it at their own time. Continue to listen to the podcast. I know you and I connected on LinkedIn, so you could watch the replay if you like, or share that. So thank you very much. I see that now. I want to give an opportunity for folks to give their closing thoughts if they like, and then we could wrap things up. Go right ahead, Saber. You can go first.
So I think everybody just needs to remember that we all have strengths, we all have weaknesses. And if we, put one foot in front of the other and just keep on moving forward, you're not a victim. You're not in there. That's probably the wrong word to use, but situations happen, and it's how you perceive. It's how you actually can embrace the things that are happening around you and just lift others up. I mean, I find more by being part of this group and, being part of so many different, I'm trying to think of what the words I'm trying to say, but as part of these kind of conversations, I would have never found this author. I wouldn't have found anything. And just having those conversations with people and lifting people up and getting them the right tools and the resources, I think we'll all be a better community, right?
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for letting me be a part of this and sharing my thoughts and, and giving me the time and the space. So I appreciate it.
No, you're welcome. Thank you very much for being there for me. I appreciate that. Jarvis, thank you very much for joining us. Let me give Liz an opportunity to share her closing thoughts, and then at that point, then if you ladies like to enjoy the rest of your evening, then you're more than welcome. Then I'll get Jarvis's thoughts on the topic. So Liz, go right ahead with your closing thoughts if you'd like to share some.
Okay, thanks, Marcello, and thanks everyone for listening and for this topic. I think it's so important right now. And I can't wait to listen to the rest of the podcast and read the book. I just think if you're aware of how you're feeling and you can deal with it in the now, you can really help to overcome it and just put one foot in front of the other. And you know, comparison is the thief of joy, right? That's the old adage. So don't compare yourself to anyone else. Be you. Remember why you're doing it. Enjoy it. And do great things. So thank you.
Thank you. Wow, that you actually made me nod my head like, you know, when you see a little dog go, comparison is a thief of joy. Wow. That is quite deep. I mean, like did you really say that? Wow, that's pretty cool. I like that. I like that. So Jarvis, thank you very much for joining us on the stage. Curious to know, in the meantime, let folks know about yourself, because obviously this is being streamed on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. Let folks know a little bit about yourself, what you do, what you're passionate about. Why should folks connect with you on LinkedIn and also here on a lovely channel here on Clubhouse? Sorry, go right ahead.
Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to speak.
Did you
I just
really
got off
say
of
that?
LinkedIn Live myself. I was watching the show before our show started, so I wanted to continue to show you support because you always support us. But a little bit about myself. My name is Jared Sucker. I'm an entrepreneur, human being first. I got a marketing company, Real One-on-One Consultant. I specialize in business, marketing, and advertising and branding. What's more special and unique about me is through my journey, I understand now that I have more gifts, talents, or insights, if you may say, into personal development. I remind other people that we are human beings first. I show people how to create a positive mindset. I lead by example. And just to very briefly touch on the topic, one way I stopped negative talk was I began to show myself more self-love. Heavier now than I've ever been in my entire life. I'm practicing self-love because I understand when you have knowledge of self, when you love yourself, that you're going to automatically stop the negative talk anyway. You're going to find your voice. You're going to understand who you are. You're going to understand your passion and your missions on this earth. And my name is Sheriff. Thank you for creating the space. I'm done.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. See, DJ is in the house. Thank you very much for coming through, DJ. Thank you very much for all your love and support. Let folks know about yourself. I know some folks might know you. I know that you're internationally renowned, but you know, some people may not be in your spectrum. So let folks know a little bit about yourself. Why should folks connect with you on LinkedIn? And if you have some insight on the topic about imposter syndrome, I'm curious to know what's your take on that.
Well, thank you for the invite. First of all, I appreciate the letting me come up on stage. It's my first or second Clubhouse room I've been in. I don't have the party hat because I kind of snuck in here a little while ago, so no party hat. But it's nice to be here among the great. Jairus, good to see you here. Were you out with the Misfits? I assume you were there. I wasn't catching the live, but it's good to catch you here on Clubhouse. My name's DJ. I'm on LinkedIn most of the time. I'm a disability navigator, mental health advocate. Love to talk about breaking stigmas against trauma, mental health issues, disability-related issues. Been streaming now for a good couple months. I got LinkedIn Live and I'm really enjoying it, being able to do that. Jared was one of my wonderful guests that we had a wonderful conversation on. So it's just been really a good time getting to know everyone on LinkedIn and now jumping over to Clubhouse and getting to meet some new folks and joining some new communities. With the question that we got for how to stop negative self-talk. That's a good question. Coming from a mental health space, I know that, that negative self-talk really can take over oftentimes, and it can be really difficult to quiet that noise, or at least learn to. Many of us oftentimes can't. And, I really think that it's important to give ourselves a little, like Jared said, self-love. That's important. And then also create a support system, someone that we can reach out to. I think I always talk about showing compassion, but I also talk about support systems and how important they are. And sometimes if you can't get yourself out of it, you really need to be able to reach out to someone else, because that negative self-talk can be very destructive.
Well, it's fun. It's interesting you mentioned that. I know, like, it's basically what I heard says, sometimes you have to reach out to a support system. And given that this is a field that you work in, I would think that you might once in a blue come across someone that don't have that support system. How do those individuals, what's your experience on that? How do they cope? And if so, what resources are out there for them?
Yeah, that's a good question. Again, it's about, I know that we have to learn to work with what we have in our environments, really, finding ways to take care of ourselves with that, again, self-care that we talk a lot about on LinkedIn, especially in these times. Self-care is so important. So, being able to find an activity you can lean into that is a healthy activity, whether it's reading, whether it be music, going outside for a walk. Pets are always therapeutic. If you have a pet, and spending some time with them. I know that oftentimes even access to treatment or care can be really difficult. So, in times of isolation, just having things around you of comfort and surrounding yourself with things of comfort the best you can.
That's that. You know what? That's the key thing. And mind you, it's funny you bring that up because I don't know anyone more comforting than our friend Kenneth Dunner Jr. He's yeah, and he said to let you know that he said hello, and he's saying that we're a great connection. I would agree. Anyone connected with DJ and Kenneth Dunner Jr., you already are like, you're like, people say 10x. Like I want a 10x next year. My goals, my numbers, and I'm already 10x once I connected with Kenneth and DJ, and I mean it because our interactions are quite genuine and organic, and we're not a part of these what they call them, these pools that people get together and be like, hey, won't you like my post? We like each other's posts. We engage in each other's posts because once we see it, we do it. That's all. But we don't do anything. Things just happen organically among us, which that's what we love. So, but yeah, Kenneth, thank you so much for coming through. You already know he provided a comment that was about 5 pages long. So thank you so much for that, Kenneth. I mean, that dude, look, here it is. Boom. His comment is almost right across your silver mane, DJ. Because if you've been watching this, and you can watch, I give you a shout out, and you click on that link. I'm screening or mirroring my phone, so you're on the screen as well as you're speaking. So yeah, but yeah, I appreciate you coming through. You guys are outstanding. I do this every week. If folks know this, on Clubhouse and also on LinkedIn Live, and I do various topics. This show, Cocktails with Chello, or Chello, is Chello when I had maybe too many cocktails. Chello instead of Cello, and it started out as a networking event, a show. And if you type in hashtag cocktails with Cello, you'll see at times we had maybe as much as 10 people on the screen, and it was like almost like a round robin, like Hollywood Squares, and everybody was, it was like a big pitch fest, and we were just having organic conversation. But eventually, people started getting their own LinkedIn lives, like DJ. Now she don't need my help no more. She got her own thing. But but now I'm providing
funny.
now I'm providing topics because they'll send me a message, hey Cello, what's the topic? I'm like, hey, we just want to network. We don't need no freaking topic, but people need topics, so that's why I'm doing the topic thing. But I appreciate the support, guys. LinkedIn, unlike any platform that I've been on, it's almost like family. It's kind of corny to say, but it's like family. I mean, I say that because
Right.
You know, I say that because think about this. Like people spend hours on Facebook, Instagram. And on Instagram, I'm not sure how the engagement is the same as Facebook, but on Facebook, yeah, you just all you doing is, I don't know, it's not the same. But on
Posting a visual.
yeah, yeah. But on LinkedIn, it's more of a strategy. Everybody's like, okay, I need to do this, I need to do that. Oh lordy, look what Kenneth Dunner said.
I think.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think the magic is that people come to LinkedIn to really make connections, to have follow through. There's an element of following through, getting to know someone, really trying to see how you can help them, they can help you, how you can work together, collaborate, and that's unlike any other platform, I think.
No, I agree. And actually, shame on me. I realized I didn't even follow you, so I followed you now. I have a second account, so I'm following you on both. So I'm glad I just realized that. Kenneth Dunner said, "How many cellos have you had tonight?" Because AKA it's cocktails of cello. But no, I haven't had one as of yet. I'll have one shortly. But yeah, I'm curious now. Before I wrap up, because LinkedIn, that's something I'm pretty passionate about. Does Sabra or Liz? Let's start with Sabra. Sabra, what are your thoughts about LinkedIn and how do you utilize that? I know we're going to a different topic, but we could wrap up on this.
So I've been a member of LinkedIn for a very long time. And the one thing I love about LinkedIn is it definitely is business to business. And I can, find who my audience is and what I can do to help them, because I have a lot of resources and I'm a connector. And people don't just come to me for what I do on my 9-to-5 job. They come to me because they know I connect them with other people, with whether it's real estate, a local shop, because I buy a lot of stuff that is from small businesses out of their homes. And so people really want to connect with me that way. So I utilize it for that. And one thing that I noticed is someone asked me if I was actually an owner of the business I work for from 9 to 5, because the way I perceive myself and I talk more about the company than what I actually do. And I did not realize until it was brought out to me that I do that. Every company that I've worked for, I really outshine what they do versus what I do.
Yeah.
So
you take pride. You take pride. You take ownership. No, you take ownership. That's the key thing. And what happens that it's so common to when you think about an employee, this is what resonates with me. I think about I think is obviously when you join an organization, there's a description of the role, and the description of the role are the tasks that you're getting paid for. So, generally, if it's outside of your description, you're not really required to do it. But it sounds like to me that you go above and beyond, and the task or the things that you do are above and beyond your 9 to 5 or your description for your role. That's the reason why people are like, so you must own the company. So yeah. So Liz, Liz, what are your thoughts on LinkedIn and how do you use it, and if you had any thoughts or any tips or any advice that you'd like to share?
I love LinkedIn. I use it for a lot of business connections in terms of finding ideas for content stories and people to have as guests on my podcast or in our conference programs or webinars. And there's just so much good content out there on LinkedIn. And I think it's getting better and better. And if you can curate your feed to what you're really interested in and people you want to follow and companies, I think it could be a really great experience. And also, I think just my tip would be don't be discouraged, because share, because even if you're not getting the likes or comments that you think you should, no one does, but people are watching. It's mostly lurkers. It's not just obviously LinkedIn, it's every social platform, right? I mean, it's such a small percentage of people who actually like or comment. So I've gotten clients from LinkedIn who I didn't even know were following me or aware of my work. And they'll say, hey, I read your article. Great job. Or I didn't realize you did this project. Or can you introduce me to so-and-so? So I think it really is great at making connections, and it's definitely worth your time. And like Saber said, I love the professional aspect of it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I most recently, like this stream that I'm on, I had a couple of folks that I've been connected with for a very long time, and a few of them are my customers. And I saw that they liked it and even commented prior to the stream, and I'm like, huh. And the reason I say I made that sound is because evidently this topic resonated with them, but every other topic that I might have done, it didn't, ring a bell with them. So obviously they didn't feel compelled to, give the check mark or like or comment. So like you said, you have a lot of lurkers out there, and I would think that the majority of your connections are lurkers. And this is why that if you know exactly what they like or the topics that you want, that you're interested in, that's how you could get their attention sooner rather than later. So yeah, I definitely agree with that. That's the key thing. And now, DJ, and we could wrap up with you. What are your thoughts about LinkedIn?
My thoughts on LinkedIn. It's awesome. I love LinkedIn. It's my favorite platform. I'm having so much fun on it, creating mayhem, talking about mental health and disability and shaking things up a little bit. But it's all in good fun, just to bring awareness and just, get some conversations started, but really just to, help those people that are having a rough time and that maybe, having a tough time getting their feelings out, getting out there and getting the help they need. And we need to really encourage that so everyone can be more healthy. We all have to take care of each other.
Yeah, that's true. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So guys, I want to thank everyone to joining Cocktails with Chello. We had a dude, I'll leave on this note. I know Kenneth Dunner, he likes the live track. So whenever you watch the live, if anyone on the panel you want to skip all the way to the end, you could listen to the laugh track. So I want to thank everyone for joining me here today. And you guys, you guys have a wonderful evening, and we'll do this again next week. Okay, guys?
Thank you. Have a good one.
Have a great night.
Bye-bye, guys.
Bye.
You told me that we should go our separate ways, but now you're back, begging for a place to stay.